before. My name is Tiara Johnson. I am the integration lead for the consortium. I'll be your host and moderator today. While folks are trickling in, I'm going to do a really quick around the room of the team members that we have on the line, and then we will go ahead and get started. So we have Greg Richardson, Executive Director and Government Caucus Lead, Stephanie Goldfarb, Operations Director, Workforce Development Focus Area Lead and Academic Caucus Lead, Matt Domenico, Secretary of the Steering Committee, David Kang, Missions and Ecosystems Focus Area Lead and Industry Caucus Lead, Shannon Zerbel, Demonstrations and Infrastructure Lead, Joseph Kohler, Policy and Regulation Focus Area Lead. And then we also have a really wonderful logistics, integration and communications team made up of Alec Cavacucci, Brianna Andrews, Joey Hang, and Jason Clemens. They are fundamental to how we are going to be operating, and I'm excited for you to get to know them. So the first thing that we are going to do is go through our agenda. So we're going to talk through our session goals. We're going to go through an overview of what is COSMIC, what are we all about. Then we'll kind of go into how we plan to operate. We're going to talk about the organization that we're proposing and the structure, including caucuses and focus areas. These are the groups that you guys will be participating in the future. We're going to look at potential products that this consortium is going to produce. And then we're going to talk about how we can build this community and how you can participate and make the most of this opportunity. Then at the end, with the time that we have remaining, we'll be doing a question and answer session. So goals for this session. We want you to come away with an understanding of COSMIC's purpose, our planned ConOps, and what benefits you'll receive from participation. We, as the consortium management entity, want to come away with an understanding of how we can make this successful for you. We are looking for feedback on what you think will work based on what we've said and what you think could be improved or added to make it work better for you and your organization and your stakeholder groups. And then finally, we want you to understand the timeline and how you can get involved. So first, we're going to start out with some ground rules. This is quite a large group. There are, last I checked, when I started presenting, there were over 50 people in the group. And so we have muted everyone for the duration of the presentation. To help with engagement, because we do want to hear what you're thinking, we have set up an event in Slido. You can join Slido on your browser, on your phone via the Slido app. It's going to function the same. And we have an event code, Cosmic Engagement 2023, or you can scan the QR code in the bottom corner of this slide. We will be having this QR code pop up throughout the presentation in case you leave and need to come back, or if in case people join late, they can join as well. What you see on the right-hand corner are the view if you joined from your mobile, but there's basically 3 sections. One, you can fill out your profile details. That will tell us who's asking the question and provide us your contact information if you would like us to reach out to you at a later date. We also have a Q&A portion of that environment, as well as an area called polls, where we have developed a survey. This survey, we're not expecting you to do real time. It is going to take a little bit of time. It's about 20 questions long, but we're looking for serious feedback from you guys. And so we're going to leave this event open for about a week after this session so that you can go in and fill out the survey on your own time. We're going to be answering questions throughout, kind of in each section, but then we're going to try and have a dedicated 10 minutes of Q&A at the end. In terms of the questions that you're putting in the chat, please keep them topical and concise to allow time for many voices to be heard. Any questions that we can't answer live in this session or live in the chat, we're going to be collecting those questions and answering them and posting an official document on cosmicspace.org after the fact. We do request that you keep discussion at the publicly available level. No CUI, no ITAR, no proprietary information. We want to hear your thoughts about the consortium itself and not technical information. And with that, I am going to turn it over to our esteemed Executive Director, Greg Richardson, to start telling us about what COSMIC is.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiara. We are so glad that you guys are here. We're glad that we're able to tell you a little bit more about what COSMIC is, what we're doing, and how we're going to use the power of collaboration to help make ISAM a routine part of space mission operations. So let's go on to the next slide. I'm going to give you about a 10-minute overview of what COSMIC is and what we're doing, and then we're going to go into a lot more details of that are coming up about how we operate and what we're doing. So let's jump to the next slide, please, Tiara. COSMIC is by the end of this part of the briefing, I want you to be able to answer the 3 questions of why COSMIC? Why do we think COSMIC is needed? Why now? Why is now the right time to bring together this group and work on these objectives? And why us? Why are we here to be able to work this together? So with that, let's go past the motivation and on to the overview. Thank you. COSMIC is a nationwide alliance for in-space servicing, assembly, and manufacturing. And so as part of this alliance, we want to bring together the entire US space community, provide global leadership in ISAM. So COSMIC is a US only alliance. We want to focus on what the US can do, but we know that ISAM doesn't stop at the borders at the water's edge. We know that the folks that are here are learning, participating, interacting as part of ISAM are going to interact internationally. And we want that, encourage that. We want you to take what you learn from ISAM and be able to, from COSMIC, and be able to use that as you go about your business. Our goal, what we're trying to do with COSMIC is to make ISAM a routine part of space architectures and mission life cycles. And that's the key, is that it has to be routine. We know that there have been ISAM demonstrations before. There's been technology maturation efforts. There's been individual activities, but we're not yet at the point where it's routine. That's so critically important for the future of what we expect to be able to do in space and what our customers, clients, and agencies need to be able to do in space to perform their mission. So making ISAM a routine part is what we're here and why we are here. As we think about, from a COSMIC management perspective, as we think about what are the things that we want to do, we focus on 3 primary objectives, and those are capability development, ecosystem economics, and mission applications. So the capability development piece, now initially when we started thinking about that, we thought about that as technology development, but we know technology is not enough. It's not enough to get an individual component or an individual element up to TRL9. We need that to be an operational capability. So it's more than just maturing technologies, although that's part of it, but it's taking them and operationalizing them so that in-space services, assembly, manufacturing can be a part of those routine operations in the future. So those capability development, think of that like the tech push piece. Over on the right side, the mission applications, that's the mission pull. What are the future missions that are enabled or enhanced by ISAM? What are the things that where ISAM either allows you to do something that you couldn't do without in-space assembly and manufacturing, or where servicing provides you more reliability, more resilience, more robustness, more life cycle value, more cost effectiveness? How are the things that, what are the ways that ISAM can contribute to the execution of that mission? That's what mission application is. So think about that like the mission pull. And then ecosystem economics in the middle. How do we take the tech push and the mission pull and get rid of the barriers that allow us to match that supply to the demand? Those barriers could be technical or operational or cost or policy and regulation. And we know that those ecosystem economic pieces allow us to be able to match supply and demand and get to that point where ISAM becomes a routine part. Let's go on to the next slide, please. So I mentioned that we have some things that we've done in the past on ISAM, and for those that know me, they know I've been working ISAM for a really long time, and one of the first things I did was a DARPA demonstration called Orbital Express, and that started back in before 2000, and I joined the program right after a contract award and worked that for about 5.5 years. And for those that know that program, they know it was a tremendous technical success. That as part of that program, we demonstrated autonomous rendezvous and docking. We demonstrated refueling another spacecraft. We demonstrated depot operations, and we demonstrated repair. But technical success is not enough. It's not enough to just show that it's possible. You need to integrate with users. And that integration with users, it's hard and it takes time, but it's critically important. And so as part of this, what we realized from COSMIC is that transparency and sharing the lessons learned. and sharing the activities and integrating with those users. All that collaboration and coordination pieces, those are the key to adoption of ISAM. We want to take those lessons and we want to apply them. We want to do what we can to encourage and facilitate that collaboration and coordination. And as we said on that intro slide, the power of coordination, the power of collaboration, that's what COSMIC is about, bringing us together to do the things that we can only do if we have that integrated US-wide approach. Let's go on to the next slide. So why now? Why is now the right time to put together COSMIC? Well, there are a couple of pieces to this. One is that there was a recognition over the last few years that ISAM was bigger than any one government agency, than any one group. And so that led to the result and the standing up of an interagency working group at the White House level to develop an ISAM national strategy that was released in April of last year, and then a national implementation plan released in December. And that described the benefits of ISAM and where we can get to at a whole of nation level. It also describes some of the strategic goals. And within those strategic goals, the ones that are listed here, there's some really important things that we as a country need to do to advance the capabilities of ISAM. One is advance ISAM research and development. And that's clear, and that's tied with the capability development piece that we're looking at. Prioritize expanding scalable ISAM infrastructure, and that's both the space-based infrastructure that is used to provide ISAM services and the ground-based infrastructure used to develop and test those capabilities before they get to orbit. But number three, that's where I really want to spend a little time, because within goal number three, accelerate the emerging ISAM commercial industry, there is a goal that is specifically says, stand up a nationwide consortium, bring together government, industry, academia, nonprofit research institutions, other consortia that are looking at these pieces, bring them all together and create a nationwide consortium. COSMIC is the group that responds to that part of the implementation plan. By bringing together this nationwide alliance, we can perform the activities that are needed to coordinate and collaborate on those. We can also hit many of the things that hit these other strategic goals, including the environmental sustainability piece, inspiring a diverse future space workforce, and all those elements within those early goals. Now, promote international collaboration and cooperation. As I mentioned, COSMIC is a US-only consortium, but we encourage COSMIC members to reach out internationally and to be able to participate in international forums like CONFERS, like international government organizations, that we want that, but COSMIC as an entity is US only. Next slide, please.
Greg, we have a question in the chat. In the context of COSMIC, does ISAM include or exclude OSAM?
Yeah, so from our perspective, OSAM is a fairly obsolete term that it referred to on-orbit servicing, assembly, and manufacturing. When the White House released their strategy, they used the term in-space servicing, assembly, and manufacturing. So it didn't just refer to Earth orbit. It could also include cislunar space or transit between one of those locations and another. We also consider things that happen on the lunar surface as far as servicing, assembly, and manufacturing part of ISAM. That doesn't necessarily mean that COSMIC is going to do that lunar surface activities. Those are better supported by LSIC and by other groups, but we want them to be a part of COSMIC. We are trying to take the broadest possible view of in-space servicing, assembly, and manufacturing so that we can cover the entire waterfront of what the US is doing. All right, so why us? Well, we here at Aerospace are briefing because we want to be able to share this information with you, and we'll talk about how we're structured as we come up on this, but here, us is bigger than just the folks that are talking today. Us is the entire US ISAM community. It's academia, it's industry, it's government, each of which has a role to play in helping make ISAM a routine part of space mission operations. And we need to work together. We need to improve communication flow within each of these sectors and between each of these sectors so that we can all work together to achieve this vision of making ISAM a routine part of space mission operations. Next slide, please. So a little bit more about what COSMIC is and is not. COSMIC is a forum for collaboration and knowledge sharing. We are going to encourage folks to share what they're doing, what they're planning, what they have done, and what they can do. We want to produce useful products. That products is a big part of what COSMIC is about. And you'll hear a little bit more about some of the proposed products and what we've done to help create those the ideas for those products that can be considered by the community. COSMIC is a US consortium. We want our members are going to be US persons working for US agencies, organizations, and universities. And COSMIC is funded by NASA. but COSMIC is not a funding body. We're not going to be offering solicitations, RFPs from that. We can help through the coordination and collaboration piece, make our membership aware of solicitations that are coming from elsewhere, but funding will not come from COSMIC. COSMIC is not a standards body, and I know that there were questions of, in Slido about standards, and CONFERS is developing voluntary consensus standards that specifically look at ISAM and the pieces that need to be in place to be able to do ISAM. They're doing a fantastic job. And so COSMIC is not going to duplicate that. We are going to support them and encourage them to continue their great work and then come back to COSMIC to share the work that they're doing. COSMIC is not a lobbying organization. We're not going to be doing that piece, and we are not international. Now, we are funded by NASA, but we're not led by NASA. We are led by, we want this to be a nationwide consortium that includes all of those members in all those sectors. So next slide, please. Instead, we are going to be led by a steering committee. So that steering committee is going to include reps from government, industry, and academia. You're going to hear a lot more about the steering committee and how it works in the next section. But we Aerospace are here as the consortium management entity to execute the day-to-day ops, to facilitate the dialogue and discussion, and to integrate the activities that are coming up here. As we get into some of these other briefings, you're going to hear more about the caucuses and where different sectors within the COSMIC membership can get together and talk among themselves. You're going to hear about the 5 focus areas that we have along the bottom and the detailed work that they're going to do to create the products that we're going to have the lower level dialogue and discussion that we need to in order for us to be able to collaborate effectively. All of that's coming up, and I encourage you to stick around. You're going to hear a lot more about each of these pieces and how those fit together. Next slide. What I do want to do today is announce that you're here today in our engagement session, but we are excitedly moving towards our kickoff. That's coming up on November 7th and 8th. We are going to be meeting at the University of Maryland in College Park. We encourage all the folks that are on this line to attend that kickoff, and we'll talk a little bit more about the activities that are going to happen at the kickoff later in the brief today. But we encourage you, if you haven't already, sign up for the COSMIC newsletter that at our website, cosmicspace.org. That'll make sure that you get all of the information that you need about future activities, including our kickoff. We want you to be a part of COSMIC. We want you to be a part of helping us to make ISAM a routine part of space mission operations. So with that, I'm going to finish my overview section. Tiara, are there any questions on this section before we move on to the next one?
I think you covered the question about the difference between COSMIC and CONFERS, but we have a follow-up question about what organizations do you see as most appropriate for standards? Are there any others other than CONFERS that you see as being big players in the standards world?
I know there are a lot of big players that want standards and want to use standards, but as far as developing standards, it doesn't do us a lot of good if there are multiple organizations, each working independently. Instead, it's more valuable if we throw our efforts and throw our attention into the activities that are going on right now so that we have one set of standards that we as the entire global ISAM community can agree on. So from that perspective, I think it's important to ensure that if you're interested in standards, engage with CONFERS, engage with the activities they're doing, push that so that as we create those international standards, all the different commercial industry users, government users from US government and outside can be working on the same set of music. That's what it's going to take to make ISAM routine. With that, thank you for the questions. Keep them coming. Bring those questions to Slido. And for those that joined since we started this, please use the QR code or the link that's in the chat to get onto Slido where you can engage, ask questions, participate in the survey. And with that, I'm going to introduce our Secretary of the Steering Committee, Matt Domenico. Matt, over to you.
Thanks, Greg. As Greg mentioned, my name is Matt Domenico. I am serving as the Secretary of the Steering Committee, which you will learn a little bit about what that means here in the next couple slides. So if you can go to the next slide. So COSMIC's daily operations are managed by a consortium management entity. So we abbreviate that as CME in here because that's a lot of words. And CME is funded by NASA to manage those daily operations. And as you have surmised, the Aerospace Corporation, which is an FFRDC, is serving as the CME for COSMIC. So what will the CME be doing? So as we already mentioned, managing daily operations. We will have representatives on each of the focus areas. You can see on the right that we have the focus areas, the caucuses, and the steering committee. And together we'll be working to make sure that work is integrated among all of those different groups. We'll support coordination between, say, individual members or among groups of members. We're responsible for leading all the communications methods and activities for COSMIC. So that's going to be obviously newsletters and things like that. There's a collaboration portal and the COSMIC website, things like that. We will support development of all the COSMIC products. So drafting of the products, configuration management of documents, editing, and then also managing the release process to make sure that things are released in the appropriate forum and not released in inappropriate forums. And just as a note, the CME is not a voting member of any COSMIC committee. So next slide. So the CME itself is guided by the steering committee, and the steering committee is the governing body for COSMIC, and its goal is to make sure that the entire US ISAM community's interests are served. And that also includes US national interests that are set forth by strategic national documents. So what will the steering committee be doing? In summary, you kind of see that at the bottom, there's these 4 main activities that the steering committee will be doing. One is setting yearly objectives and also coordinating, so they're also listing potential risks to, whether it's ISAM or to COSMIC. Out of that, they are defining the priorities and the products for each year, and then in conjunction with the CME, the steering committee will be prioritizing those lists, and then in conjunction with the CME, we'll be able to determine how much of those products will be able to get accomplished in that year. We can't obviously do everything that we would like on that list, so we're going to work down that priority list, say 1 to N list, and work towards those for that year. Also shaping the direction, and then that a big part of the way direction for COSMIC is shaped is through changes to the operating plan, which is the governing document for all of COSMIC. Next slide. So the steering committee is a 12-person committee, and you can see on the right is the breakdown of how it's made up. So 4 industry members, 2 academia, 3 civil space agencies, and 3 national security space agencies. So for the first, the representatives on the steering committee will be elected by each of the caucuses. So industry will elect 4 its representatives, academia its 2, and then government the 3 and 3 for a total of 6. But for the first year, the steering committee members are going to be appointed by the CME, just to make sure that we have a broad cross section and really check. There's a lot of boxes that we're looking at to make sure that we check. So we want to make sure that there's obviously government, industry, and academia representation, servicing, assembly, manufacturing experts and interests. We want to make sure there's providers, that there's users and researchers, and that each focus area is going to be represented on the steering committee. So there's also there will be a chair of the steering committee that is a non-voting civil servant member of COSMIC. So that leaves 11 voting members. Each representative on the steering committee is going to appoint an alternate. So in case they're unable to make it for one of the steering committee meetings or something comes up, their alternate will be able to fill in. And then the steering committee membership is planned to be for 2-year rotating terms. Next slide. And just some general procedures for how the steering committee is going to operate. The plan is that the steering committee meets at a minimum on a quarterly basis. We had mentioned the secretary of the steering committee, so coordinating 12 people's schedules and planning and getting all the documents out and read aheads will be one of the things that I'll be providing to the steering committee. The aim is to work towards unanimity for all decisions. We don't want something split 50-50 where half the steering committee or half of COSMIC thinks that we should go one direction and the other half goes the other. We want to work towards unanimity. In the event that we can't get there, 2/3 majority is required. Again, that's to be resolved. We're still working towards that. If you have input on that, feel free. And then a couple of outputs for the steering committee on a yearly basis. So your steering committee is going to put together a list of products for Cosmic, or excuse me, a list of priorities for the Cosmic products, like we mentioned. They'll be doing a periodic checkup on Cosmic, so kind of a report card, effectively, on how are we working towards meeting Cosmic's objectives that it's set, and then analyzing that with respect to U.S. national interests and governing documents there. And then also pulling together a list of top Cosmic risks. So, and that's all I've got. So if we want, unless we have questions, we can go to the next slide. I don't think there's any questions then. So I'd like to introduce David Kang, who's going to discuss the caucuses and the focus areas.
Thanks, Matt. My name is David Kang. For Cosmic, I'll be supporting mission and ecosystem focus area and industry caucus. Now, before I begin on these slides that I have, this part of the caucuses and focus area, each member belongs to one of the three caucuses: the government, industry, and academia. And then amongst them, the group's interested members participate in focus areas to develop products. And the following slides kind of offer more details on both. So jumping into focus areas, it is structured as working groups and subgroups as needed. It's modeled after LSIC, Lunar Surface Integration Consortium, with subgroups led by members and are created for narrower topics. They will generate product ideas and work on products. Cosmic members can support one or more focus areas of their choosing, and the focus areas are supported and coordinated by CME staff. For example, I'll be supporting the missions and ecosystem focus area. Jumping to caucuses, a separate discussion forums for the government, industry, and academic stakeholders, so that we can have a government-only, industry-only, and academics-only discussions. They generate product ideas and identify needs specific to their caucuses. The members are automatically assigned to their caucus based on membership applications. And the caucuses are coordinated by elected chair with support from CME. So, for example, I'll be supporting the industry caucus. Anyways, continuing with more details in the focus area. Next chart, please. So these focus area is basically where the work gets done. The purpose, of course, is to produce useful products that support the need of the ISAM community. We work on product ideas generated by this community and prioritized by steering committee. For the initial 5 focus area that has been shown is research and technology, demonstration infrastructure, mission and ecosystems, policy and regulation, and workforce development. The steering committee will determine when and if an additional focus area working groups are needed, as well as whether an existing group has fulfilled this purpose and can be retired. So the cadence is that each focus area engaged throughout the year on a monthly basis. Now, let's kind of go into a little more detail on the initial 5 focus area. Next slide, please. So this is basically the scope with example of topics of interest listed, in the boxes. Starting with research and technology, we're talking about basic research, applied technology, and R&D subgroups pertaining to typical subsystems like robotics, RPO, capture, refueling, and so forth. Now, the questions this focus group is interested in include what is the technology gaps and how is it synergistic with other focus areas, and perhaps identifying the need for maturation, which kind of leads to the next box, which is the demonstration and infrastructure. And obviously, in that kind of infrastructure, we need simulations, ground test facilities, and on-orbit flight test beds. Basically, the proving grounds for ISAM. Jumping into missions and ecosystems, they're dealing with business models, economic benefits, and programmatic and operational versatility. Addressing the current missions enhanced by ISAM and future missions enabled by ISAM. Of interest is like roadmaps mated to future demand levels, such as servicers and providers, addressing tech push and mission pull, and together joining in to examine ISAM envision futures. Then moving on to policy and regulation. For COSMIC, we'll address some of the past lessons learned to remove some of the speed bumps for widespread adoption, and support others who develop things like standards, as Greg mentioned before, and communicate kind of regulatory needs to the community. And this shared lesson learned from the past and ongoing mission is important to smooth out the progress of ISAM. And of course, we'll keep people abreast of any of the changes that is happening in the community. And finally, the workforce development. Increased opportunities to include ISAM in education, skilled labor workforce, and kind of more opportunities to attract students to tackle ISAM challenges. Now, on this chart, although the focus areas were presented in separate boxes, we recognize that there's strong interrelationships at present and need for cross-area cooperations. And that leads to the next chart, please. And the example that I've illustrated is that demonstration infrastructure enables research and technology. Missions and ecosystems uses technologies developed by research and technology. Mission needs are communicated back to research and technology. Policy and regulation and workforce development overlays all phases of development implementation. And knowing that continued interaction between the focus area is an embedded and crucial role for this consortium. And continuing on from focus area, the details of the caucuses are shown in the next slide. Next, please. The caucuses. As mentioned previously, the purpose is to provide a forum for like stakeholders to identify their ISAM needs and communicate them to the focus areas who will work to produce products to address those needs. Recognizing that different community has their own perspective on issues and priorities, resulting in a unique set of product needs. Now, the decision-making, there will be a caucus chair voted in each one of the caucuses by a simple majority vote for 1-year term. This chair will convene the meetings and coordinate recommendations for product needs. The cadence, we expect that there will be a quarterly meeting of the caucus. And finally, throughout my discussion, I mentioned products as one of the core emphasis of COSMIC. In the next presentation, Shannon will share some of the additional details about the COSMIC products. Thank you.
Okay, sounding like we don't have any specific questions for David, I will take over. Thank you, David, for that presentation. So hopefully you've started thinking about where you fit in COSMIC, what focus areas you can contribute to. As David talked about, there are caucuses that basically just based on where you come from. If you're a member of COSMIC, you fit into one of those caucuses, but the focus areas are where you get to choose where you want to focus. You can be a member of multiple caucuses or focus areas. If you'll advance, Tiara, we'll go to the next slide and focus on some of the products that we envision COSMIC developing. So as highlighted on the right, COSMIC is here to get work done. We have gone through and defined a few potential products, and I will emphasize multiple times throughout my section that these are proposed products. They may change. We absolutely expect to receive more input from you. But for the definition of product, these are just the materials that are created by the consortium and delivered either to the COSMIC members or the public or some other defined distribution. From the products I'll share today, the proposed products, we've considered what potential products can be derived from the ISAM implementation plan and also the consortium operating plan. That's a very limited scope. We're looking for you to help define what additional products we need to include. Right now, we're very heavy towards government input with those two sources. So please suggest products. We repeated the QR code here. It's the same as what Tiara has dropped in the chat a few times. If you haven't already, drop comments in the chat, answer the poll. There's a specific question that regards products. But we'll be starting now, going through to the kickoff for your feedback as to what products should be created. Next slide, please. So this is what I alluded to. We've got a lot of input from the government just through the implementation plan. Even that is a bit biased, right? There are additional aspects of government that aren't necessarily represented in that implementation plan. And we haven't got much feedback yet from industry and academia. But we want to have that balanced representation. And so your input is going to be necessary and very appreciated as we move forward in defining what products we can develop. I'll spend a few charts just going over how we arrived at the list of products that we defined from the implementation plan. But just again, this is a very limited view of who our community is, and we recognize that. So any input you have, again, there's the QR code. Please drop that in the chat in the slides starting now through to the kickoff. Next slide. So on this slide, I'm just going to walk through an illustration of the product derivation we did from the ISAM implementation plan. So that's where we started with the implementation plan, which should pop up in the animation any second now. There, okay, great, thanks, Tiara. So the implementation plan was our source document. One example I pulled from it is 2.2, support development of space and ground infrastructure. And there are two subtasks below that. Just to save on words, I just listed the top level. The next thing we did was define the potential COSMIC activity. For this one, again, the potential activity is to identify and assess gaps within the U.S. government space infrastructure and ground test facilities infrastructure, and then develop a plan to close those gaps. COSMIC's role in fulfilling that objective, those objectives, can either fulfill it completely or just contribute. In this case, COSMIC would contribute. We can evaluate gaps and make recommendations, but the agencies are responsible for developing the plan. And finally, the potential product, that would be the evaluation and recommendations, and that would be delivered in an annual report. We went through this kind of process for each of the tasks in the implementation plan. And on the next slide, please, Tiara, we will see a bit of top level descriptions for each of those potential products. So we also include the steering committee's actions that come out of the COSMIC operating plan here. Those would be an assessment of the state of COSMIC and maintaining a list of risks for the steering committee. I apologize for throwing all the words at one time, but we'll just walk through each box. So the consortium management entity next is responsible for the communication, both within COSMIC, but also externally. So the annual executive level report, summary or minutes from our general membership meetings, and maintaining the COSMIC website for that communication mechanism. The caucuses, I will note, have no obligation or expectation to create any products. They are simply a forum for each of those sectors to discuss their particular needs. But the focus areas are where that work is really happening. And again, anyone in a caucus can join any of the focus areas, and multiple of them if they wish. So the focus areas for the first three, they kind of have a similar set of products. So you'll see the inventory is repeated across those first three, an inventory of the things that are of interest to each of those. So in the first, research and technology, again, that's their inventory, right? What is the technology that exists that's being worked on actively? What are R&D activities out there? What missions are applying those technologies? And so on for each of those first three. This inventory would be a living repository on the website that would be available to all members. So you could go in at any time to see what information has been released within the COSMIC group. Once a year, that would be rolled into an annual report that would include that information summarized, as well as the gaps that we've identified and the recommendations. And also in missions and ecosystems, we do have roadmap listed there as one of the pieces. That roadmap may need to be repeated across more of the focus areas than we currently have listed, just based on some initial feedback. Then in the next two, missions and ecosystems and policy and regulation, we see white papers coming up. So these are areas where we think, it's maybe a little bit more of a one-time effort or repeated at a lower frequency, where the focus area would go out, do some research, write up a white paper on the needs and challenges that we see in those areas. For example, the policy and regulation would write a white paper on procurement challenges. And then finally, workforce development is a little different. This one, we anticipate one product would just be an aggregation of resources that already exist or are being created by partner communities, either in academia, industry, or the government. An example would be a list of NASA STEM activities that would just be listed on the website to point back to where those resources exist. Another important one we think is coordinating mentorships. This may take the form of an active list of mentors who sign up within our COSMIC community to mentor either students or early career members, or even those who are just new to ISAM, they're not necessarily new in their careers, to help really develop the ISAM workforce and further the ISAM in our nation. Next slide, please, Tiara, unless there are any questions on this one.
We do have one question that I think we could answer verbally. Who will be the readers of the products? For example, will the content of the COSMIC product be reflected in future space policies or future NASA funding solicitations? And Shannon, either you can answer this or Greg can answer this.
Yeah, I will take a first pass and allow Greg to finish up any of the answer. The products are anticipated to be released publicly. There may be some limited distribution for certain products. In terms of policy, informing policy, I'm going to pass that over to Greg.
Perfect. Thanks, Shannon. I think one of the things that we realize is that for each product, the audience is going to be different. And so we want to provide these products to the folks that are making decisions about space policy. We want them to understand what's happening at ISAM. We want them to understand the gains that have been made in the current state of the art. We want the folks that are dealing with future technology roadmaps to understand where we as the US ISAM community see gaps, so that as they create those future policies, as they create future solicitations, as they implement future missions, they know what we as the community knows about what's happening in ISAM and where it's advancing. So we do not expect that that a COSMIC report will be directly implemented because it's a COSMIC report, but we do know that making sure the folks that are making those decisions have all the latest and greatest data is critical to making sure that they incorporate ISAM.
Thank you, Greg.
I have one more question for you, Greg. How will these products be funded?
All right, so funding, as we mentioned up front, NASA is funding us as the consortium management entity to create the dialogue, create the discussion, create the collaborations forum for these. Our expectation is that folks who join COSMIC do so because they believe in the mission that we've got. Now, there is no cost to join COSMIC. Many of the folks that are on here have already taken the first step by signing up for the newsletter on the cosmicspace.org mailing list. Later on, we're going to be sending out a membership agreement that certifies that they are a U.S. person working for a U.S. organization. And then when that happens, you're a member of COSMIC. And so as a member of COSMIC, you can participate in all of those focus areas. You can participate in caucus meetings. You can come to general membership meetings like our kickoff this fall. And what we are looking for is a coalition of the willing, the folks that are willing to work on those products from among the members. We as aerospace are going to help facilitate, lead, push where we need, pull where we can to create those products and make sure that they both meet the needs of the broader cosmic community and are delivered according to with the prioritization defined by the steering committee. So we're going to be working together to pull all those together and make sure that those products are representative and valuable.
Great, thank you. If we're ready to go forward. Okay, if the animation doesn't work here, this slide is not going to make a lot of sense. So we'll give it a minute to see if it pops up properly. So here, I just wanted to walk through the life cycle of a product. So it would start, it looks like it's not quite working right, but we have a product here starting at one of the caucuses. Don't advance, I think it might work. We'll see how it goes. The caucuses, I'm picturing those as being the primary generator of product ideas. It would go to a steering committee once a year. The steering committee does an annual review of proposed products and prioritizes them. May provide some additional feedback on what those products should actually look like. After the steering committee has done their prioritization, it would go over to the consortium management entity. It should advance here in just a minute. And at the CME level, they do the work of comparing against what funding we have just for running the consortium. As I think Greg and maybe David noted, there's no funding to actually do the work beyond running the actual consortium. But what funding do we have running the consortium? What does this, the schedule, what's the actual schedule time that we have to complete products, what's realistic? And they assign those products to the focus areas. Again, those are the ones doing the majority of the work. So here I have it down in demonstration infrastructure. Within that focus area, there would likely be additional subgroups created to focus specifically on a specific product. It could also be just at the same focus area level, depending on participation and the number of people we have working and what they're interested in working on. The subgroup develops that product to the level that is determined to be complete and can present it back to the focus area prior to it going back to the steering committee ultimately. The steering committee does have a responsibility to review all final products to approve them for release, but the consortium management entity is the one that releases the final product and has the ultimate responsibility of making sure that it is ready, whether that's ITAR, any other legal bits to be released for public or for some other proper distribution that's defined for that product. So, okay, we at least got to follow the little product icon around the screen. Missed a few words, but I think we covered everything on that. If there's no question there, yeah, next slide, please, Tara. So finally, coming back to this same slide, showing, we still only have the government really represented. We were at the State of Space Industry Base a few months ago, and just in an informal conversation with the participants there, we got some great feedback already on ideas for products or needs that the industry that members that were present shared in conversation. And so we see here questions or requests for roadmaps, for studies on specific technologies, for papers on business cases, definitions of value models. So some of these are already can roll in easily into the products we've proposed to fulfill the ISAM implementation plan, but some of them are a little bit specific to the needs of industry. And that's, again, exactly what we're looking for. That input from both industry and from academia, from large industrial groups, from new entrants, new space entrants, from research level institutions to those who are building hardware and putting it into space. So this is my final slide, and I want to leave it here for a minute. Hopefully these questions will help provoke some new ideas for recommended products. You again have through to the kickoff to think up new ideas. That'll be a big part of our kickoff, is putting together proposed product submissions to the steering committee. And just specifically question 16 of the poll, or item 16, as you scroll down in the poll in Slido, solicits ideas for cosmic products. So that's another place where, aside from the chat, you can put in some of your ideas there. All right, any questions, Tiara, from the chat that we can address now? Sounds like we are ready to move on. The next, then, I will pass it back to Greg Richardson to discuss how you can get involved. Over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon. Really appreciate you walking through that slide of, how a bill becomes a law in product form, right? How you create ideas, what happens with the steering committee, how we as the consortium management entity get involved, and where the work actually happens at the focus areas. It's critical then that we, as we create those products, as we create ideas for those products, that we get community input. What does the community need? What does the community want? And here I keep talking about the community because the community is government, industry, academia, the nonprofit research organizations, the other consortia looking at a piece of this. All of that is the US cosmic community. So let's go on to the next slide and talk a little bit more about building that communication and participation. So as far as membership in Cosmic, there is no cost to join. So there are requirements because it's US only, but no cost to join. So you can join and participate at the level that you feel comfortable. We as Aerospace, as the consortium management entity, are going to do our best to make this valuable to you. So you can see the value in sharing information, the value in receiving that information, the value of being part of this community. And I'll highlight what's said there at the bottom. We're going to be working on these products, and decisions are going to be made by those that show up. We want you to show up. We want you to be a part of that. As you do, you'll be able to get access to those members-only collaboration, and that includes focus area meetings, working meetings, caucus meetings, subgroups. It includes membership, attendance at the general membership meetings, including the kickoff coming this fall. But all that requires you to come to see what you're going to get out of it. And when you come, you're going to be asked to share information. What are you doing? What are the activities that you have done to date? Are there technology advancements that you've made? Are there products that you want to offer? Are there capabilities that you want to be a part of? Everyone who comes is going to have a different perspective. Some of them are going to be more on the mission pull area, some more on the tech push, some more on the facilities, the ground space, the digital ground or space-based testing facilities. We want you to share information so that we can figure out where are their gaps, where are their linkages, where is their coordination that would help benefit all of us. You'll be invited to create products, to do your part in making sure that both the products that we create are valuable to you, and that the products the products that we create represent the latest and greatest data that you have about the activities that you're doing, and where you as a company, a government agency, or a university are doing. You'll be invited to select representatives. Matt walked through the steering committee and talked about how that steering committee is going to set priorities for Cosmic as a whole. We want you to make sure that your voice is heard in selecting who represents your sector in that steering committee meeting. Someone who can give your voice as they're discussing priorities, as they're discussing products, as they're discussing activities. And so you'll be asked to select representatives to make sure that as Cosmic continues on into the future, that you've got someone there who is pushing for your part of the US ISAM community. And we want to identify new activities and products. We want to see, is there something else that Cosmic can do and should do that benefits you? Raise those ideas, bring them up, share them with the other parts of the Cosmic community, help make a good case so that as the steering committee is considering a bunch of really good ideas, the best ones flow up to the top. And there are benefits, different types of benefits, depending on where you come from. In government, this idea of helping to create an integrated demand signal, being able to cooperate within your agency and across agencies to better understand where the pieces are, who's doing what, and how these pieces can fit together. In industry, you'll have links to the entire US ISAM community. You'll be able to hear directly from the government folks about, here's what we want, here's what we're doing, here's what we're planning. You'll be able to identify if there are places out there that that represent great partners for you in your current stage of development, in your current stage of maturity, and in your current stage of ISAM adoption. All those are great benefits that you can get from participating, not just joining and being a member and signing up, but coming to the meetings, meeting the other folks, sharing information about where you are and what you're doing. And for academia, you get that exposure. You can share information about where you are and what you're doing, what you're planning. That would help with some of the road mapping products that Shannon talked about. It would help with some of the integrated capability assessment products that Shannon talked about. All of these need the participation from all of these various sectors in order to be able to make Cosmic the success that we all want it to be. Next slide, please. So as part of that participation, we've talked about success, and there are questions in Slido about success, and we're definitely want to think about what success looks like from a Cosmic perspective. And so we think about success, we start thinking about metrics. What are the things that we want to track? But we know that tracking those and making ISAM a routine part of space mission operations, this is not a short-term problem. We're not going to be done in 6 months or a year. We are committed to the long-term activities needed to ensure that the US has global leadership in ISAM and to advance ISAM and ISAM adoption within the global space ecosystem. And so to work on identifying metrics, we think about metrics in a couple different ways. One is metrics about participation. Are we as Cosmic bringing in the entire US ISAM community? And do we have the folks here that represent what's happening across that entire set of US ISAM stakeholders? We think about metrics in terms of Cosmic effectiveness. Is it producing products? Is it producing things that are useful to the Cosmic members and useful to the folks that would be receiving those products, reading them, and making decisions based on them? And the third type of metric is metrics related to ISAM and how well is ISAM integrating into space mission operations and ecosystems. And so that is the big piece. That's why Cosmic exists. That's why we're here today. That's why we're having a kickoff this fall. And that's why we want to come together to collaborate. We want to make ISAM a routine part of operations. So what do we expect? Well, in year one, we know that there's going to be some startup. And we want, by the end of the first year, that thriving community. That community that we created, engaging in product creation, participating in discussions, and thinking about how we solve these national level problems with respect to ISAM. If that community exists and is engaged and is there and collaborating at year one, that's a great start, but that's not enough. So at year five, we want a measurable increase in ISAM acceptance and implementation, both within and across the US space community. And by year N, and I don't know what N is, I know that in the future, when ISAM is a routine part of space architectures and mission life cycles, when that happens, we at Cosmic will have done what we needed to do. It's a routine part of the activities that happen in space. And maybe this consortium is no longer needed. We can go off and solve the next hard problem, but we want to think about other metrics that will help us track those three parts: participation, effectiveness, and integration. So we're looking for community ideas. And so we definitely want to bring the community together to help us brainstorm about that and figure out what we should be tracking. Next slide, please. So what can you do? Get involved. And so get involved starting today. One of the best things you can do is fill out that survey in Slido. I know that there are already over 100 folks that are in Slido right now. That survey, as we mentioned, is going to be open for another, I forget if it was a week or 2 weeks, but after this event. So you've got time to think about your answers. Go in, fill out that feedback survey, but tell us what you're thinking. Tell us ideas for products. Tell us things that we're missing. Tell us things that might help your sector get more engaged with this. We want to hear that so that we can integrate that feedback and make sure that we are set up for success when we kick off this fall. Continue to engage with aerospace as the consortium management entity. Give us more feedback. The survey is not the last time that you could talk to us. Continue to think about what are the pieces that fit here and how can you see yourself in Cosmic? Where do you want to contribute? What are the parts and pieces of Cosmic where you think your time would be most valuable to be spent? We definitely want to hear about that. We want you to engage with your home institution. Talk to the folks in your organization about Cosmic, about what you can do to help make Cosmic successful, and talk to others in your network. We need Cosmic to represent the broad interests of the US ISAM community. And if it's missing a big sector, if it's missing certain parts of the government or certain parts of the community, of the commercial community, or certain parts of the academic community, it's not going to be representative of the entire US ISAM community. So talk to your network, talk about how you can engage, and then reach out to us if you've got questions. But that's just today. We've got more coming up. Next slide, please. Coming up this fall, as we mentioned, we've got our kickoff November 7th and 8th at the University of Maryland College Park. We hope that people will come in person to hear and to participate in the agenda that's going there. And that agenda right now, we've got 2 days. And that first day is about setting the stage, about talking as a group about both the type of problems that we expect to have, where we stand as the US ISAM community, and especially expose the variety of perspectives that are going to come from members from these different type of sectors. We want that kickoff to help it spark ideas and dialogue and discussion so that we can make sure that by the time we get to day 2, and by the time we start splitting into the working sessions for focus areas and do the focus area and caucus breakouts, by the time we start splitting up to go and do that work, we've got a common understanding of where we are, where we think we could go, and some ideas for how to get there. But that 2 day of 1 day of setting the table and 2 day of starting the work, we encourage you to come. We know that there are some people that prefer to attend virtually. And so for most of the kickoff, we will try to get that done virtually. There are parts that are going to be in person only. So we encourage you to attend, be a part of the Cosmic community. But most important part is be engaged. We want you to be there. We want you to participate, and we'll have something similar there with respect to Slido engagement so that virtual participants have the opportunity to have dialogue and ask questions, but nothing's quite like being there in person. So as you're there and as you prep for that, think about what are the products that we want to have? What are the subgroups that you want to form up so you can have deeper discussions and we can have at that high level focus area? What are your needs and challenges? Bring that data to the kickoff. Let's talk about it. Let's make progress. Let's do this together. That starts this fall. Next slide, please. But Cosmic continues on. So in 2024, support the steady state cadence of Cosmic. We're going to have monthly focus area meetings. We're going to have quarterly caucus meetings. We're going to have general assembly meetings where we can do dialogue and discussion across those focus areas. We want you to be there supporting those, developing those first year products, helping our community get to where we need to be so that we can continually improve and thrive. It doesn't happen without the participation that you can bring, and we want you there. Next slide, please. So just finally, this is the chart that I want to just hold on here while we deal with some questions that I'm sure have come up in the chat. Come to the kickoff November 7th and 8th at the University of Maryland College Park. Help us explore the power of collaboration. Help us make ISAM a routine part of space mission architectures and life cycles. With that, Tiara, let me pause here and let's start in on the questions.
All right, so I think we've been doing an all right job answering via text, but we do have a few questions that have not been answered yet. And if you guys want to start spamming us with questions, please feel free. First question that we have not addressed is, given that one of the goals of the National Implementation Plan is international collaboration, how do we see Cosmic fitting into that, given that it is a US only organization?
All right, so let me address that. It's interesting too, and you know, one of the things that's important is to make sure that we deal with that international cooperation. But even if you look at the implementation plan, when you look at the task that specifically calls out standing up on a nationwide alliance, it does specify domestic, and we want to ensure at a nationwide level that the US is collaborating internationally, but we still need a forum for domestic collaboration so that the folks who are doing that domestic discussions, dialogue, coordination, collaboration have an opportunity and a location to do that. So COSMIC represents that place where we can do that domestically, but we encourage all the COSMIC members who are looking internationally to continue to do that so that we can hit that goal in the implementation plan.
Thanks, Greg. All right, next question that we haven't answered in the chat. Will COSMIC be working with DARPA in promoting the use of lunar resources?
So as far as promoting the use of lunar resources, we know that from an in-space manufacturing perspective, that there is value in long-term having either having in-situ resources as the basis for manufacturing or as a location for assembly and servicing. We are going to be working with whoever comes, and we want DARPA to be a part of that. We know they have programs for in-space servicing. We know they have programs for in-space assembly and manufacturing, and we want to be collaborating with them. We want DARPA to be a part of this. We want NASA. We want DOD. We want all the different government agencies that are doing anything related to in-space servicing, assembly, or manufacturing to be a part of this, because the value of collaboration requires that we have all of these folks together, sharing their ideas, sharing their perspectives, helping us create those kind of integrated roadmaps and plans for where we can go next.
All right. Next question. I know aerospace has facilities in El Segundo. Are there any plans to have in-person meetings on the West Coast?
Yeah, so our kickoff here is on the East Coast, but we intend for future general membership meetings to be moving throughout the country. And so we're trying to figure out where are the places where we're going to have a lot of a concentration of members. So we can't say specifically about an aerospace facility. What we can say is we know that this is a long-term endeavor, and over time we are going to be having COSMIC general membership meetings wherever there are members that want to come. We want to spread that around the country. We want to be able to make sure that folks that are local to each of those meetings have the opportunity to have at least one COSMIC meeting close to where they are, so that we can showcase the diversity of activities that are happening across the country.
All right, thank you, Greg. What audience is seen as being of primary importance for COSMIC products?
So it depends. There are some products that we're going to create because they are valuable to our members. So one of the things that we can create is, as Shannon was talking about, databases or roadmaps or things that summarize, here are the things that our members are doing. We're going to be sharing those with other members to improve and help with the coordination and collaboration that is the reason why COSMIC exists. There are other products that we create that are going to be intended for the general public. And so for those, we'll release those, and then we hope that those will make their way into industry, into academia, into government, so that folks that are making decisions know more about what we as the US ISAM community think is important, and what we think is the current status that fits into that product. So it depends on the product, but we know that different products will go to different locations.
That is the last question that we have not answered in the chat.
All right, Tiara, can you clarify? I know I said I wasn't sure if that survey was going to be open for a week or 2 weeks. Help me understand, for the folks that are there, how long do they have to complete that survey? And then I can talk a little bit about what happens next.
It will close on August 9th.
August 9th. Perfect. Thank you so much. So for the folks that are on here, please go fill out that survey. Tell us what you're thinking. If you've got more questions, we want to hear that. And like I said before, this is not your last opportunity to engage with us, to provide feedback. We want you to reach out. Use the website at cosmicspace.org. Reach out to me if you need to. We want to make sure that if you've got questions, comments, feedbacks, ideas, bring them to us. We are stronger when we bring in the diversity of ideas, the diversity of perspectives that come from the entire US ISAM community. So we want to hear from you. Please reach out. Please stay engaged. That's how we're going to do this together.
I have one last question.
All right.
It says, with regards to CONFER's differentiation, I understand the distinction between US focus versus international. CONFER's is also focused more on the S in ISAM. Does this imply COSMIC may focus more on the A and the M?
All right, I'm gonna I'm gonna stumble a little bit, and I'm gonna try not to speak for Confers, but we've had ongoing dialogue and discussion between Cosmic and Confers to make sure that these two organizations remain in lockstep as we continue to move forward to stand up this organization and to continue to promote the fantastic work that's happening within Confers. One of the things that we've learned is that Confers is expanding beyond just the servicing that they've looked at, but treating assembly and manufacturing as other types of in-space services. So their focus on in-space services will include servicing, assembly, and manufacturing. Now they're expanding as they expand that scope, where they are looking is going to be a little bit broader than where they've looked in the past. But within Cosmic, we also are going to be looking at the broadest part of servicing, assembly, and manufacturing. I mean, it's right there in the name, space mobility and ISAM capabilities. And anything that happens that falls into any of those categories is something that we want to be a part of. That doesn't necessarily mean that everything that happens is going to be a Cosmic product. One of the things that we can do is help drive traffic to other organizations that are working on pieces of that broad ISAM vision. If there are folks that are working specifically on one part of that, we don't need to duplicate those activities. We need to collaborate with the folks that are out there already, bring them under the Cosmic umbrella from a coordination and communication standpoint, but let them go off and focus on the reason that they stand up and the activities that they're doing. That's a critical piece, is that Cosmic wants to help those communities connect to each other, help broaden the exposure to the products that those communities create, and just make sure that we're better at sharing information across all of the different sectors that represent the US ISAM community.
All right, we got another question that came in. Aerospace has a lot of experience in proposals. Is there any way we can get help in getting other government resources such as funding for certain products?
Sure. So as aerospace, we are here as the consortium management entity, and our job is coordination and collaboration. Through Cosmic, we intend to publicize things that come from Cosmic members that are on the government side. So anything that that our government members have as far as solicitations, RFIs, BAAs, RFPs, we want to publicize that to the broadest community. And that's the role that aerospace is playing in improving the coordination and collaboration piece. As I mentioned, Cosmic is not going to be funding that, but also if you are part of a government agency and you're or part of a commercial company and you're looking to aerospace, there are parts of aerospace that are going to help you with that, but Cosmic is not the right venue for that. The folks that are here from our Cosmic program office are here to create the collaboration environment needed to advance the US ISAM capabilities and to make ISAM a routine part of space mission operations.
All right. What is the long-term sustainment plan for Cosmic? How long does the current NASA funding last?
I would encourage, let's see, as aerospace, I don't want to speak for NASA on that. What I will say is that both aerospace and NASA are committed to the long-term success of Cosmic. And so we recognize this is not a short-term problem, and we're going to do our best to make sure that as we continue to grow Cosmic, to expand the capabilities, to expand the products that we do over time, that we remain in lockstep to make sure that we have a common vision for where we're going. But we know that making ISAM a routine part of space mission operations is not going to happen overnight.
Right, I haven't seen any new questions come in the last 30 seconds. Would we like to stay on the line for a few more minutes and see if any more questions roll in before letting people go?
All right, I'm happy to stick around a few more minutes. Let's see if any more pop in. But even if they don't, thank you all for coming. Thank you for your attention. We're glad you're here. We want you to stay engaged and involved.
All right, we will stay on the line until 2:20, which I believe on the West Coast is 11:20. Oh, and for the folks that are asking about whether we will be posting slides or sending them out to participants list, we will be putting the following things on the website after the session. We will be putting a recording of this meeting, a PDF of the slides, and a PDF with written out responses to all of the questions that have been in the chat, as well as some other more detailed frequently asked questions. So we're going to have a formal response to questions document posted on cosmicspace.org. And we're aiming to do that in the next few weeks. Okay. Another question. Providing Congress and national reports is something mentioned. How do we avoid doing this without being considered as lobbying?
Got it. So one of the things that we've talked about as we've created our consortium operating plan, which is the basic foundation for how we operate Cosmic as a consortium, one of the most critical pieces that we have is to avoid providing advice directly to the government. One of the things that we can do with that is make sure that as we are creating the specific products, we're not going to be saying an agency X should go do Y. Instead, we can talk about what we as the US space community think is important, but we can't direct that advice to any government agency. That's how we get around that piece and make sure that we're compliant with all of the regulations associated with the type of consortium that we're standing up, but also make sure that the products that we create are useful and used in helping to shape the future. Are there other questions that are coming through in the chat?
One just came through now.
All right.
Would the governing plan and structure change as the three major areas shift in balance? For example, if servicing becomes much bigger industry than assembly and manufacturing, would the focus of Cosmic shift?
So we know that servicing, assembly, and manufacturing are not all going to come online at once, and might not all come online in a single batch. So what that means is, as we prepare for a future in which assembly and manufacturing is more common, there might be more near-term activity around servicing, but there's still some fraction of our time and attention that we should spend on assembly and manufacturing, knowing that together, servicing and assembly and manufacturing each have parts to play in helping create the kind of vital, vibrant in-space economy and the type of resilience and robustness that ISAM provides. So the net result is we can't ignore one or the other. We need to spend part of it, but if there are members that want to spend more time working on servicing, great. We encourage them to do that. There are going to be members that only want to spend time on assembly and manufacturing. That's great too. We want them come sharing what the activities that they're doing, sharing about their plans and where they're going in the future, and finding like-minded individuals with whom they can talk about the details of their activities. So for folks that want to do servicing, come on in. You're welcome. We'll make sure that it's worth your while.
All right. With that, we will close out. We will also leave the chat active. So if you think of another question you'd like us to answer in that document that we're putting together, this event stays open until the 9th. So you can come back into Slido, use this event code and put a question in the chat. We will be reading it and collating all of our and creating answers for you guys, and making sure that your concerns are addressed. So thank you all so much. We appreciate your time and attention, and we look forward to seeing you, hopefully in person, but if not, virtually, at our kickoff on November 7th and 8th.